6 o'clock, time to watch The Simpsons. 6 o'clock, gather around and watch The Simpsons. Oh, turn it over, it's a new one.
The best single gig I've ever done, I think, must have been the Hammersmith Apollo. Because now that was when I was supporting Dave Gorman on his UK tour. I'd never be able to get a venue like that on my own.
Now that's two top comedy names in my mind. That would be a proper gig for me, because I think the way that he presents and the way that he gets his message across, and some of the exactly the same, but from a musical perspective, that you guys work past. So how did you get that gig?
He found me. He actually saw Unfinished London. And tweeted about it, and I got all excited. Oh wow, TV's Dave Gorman, like something. Wow! And then afterwards, he found out that I do gigs, and he said, "Do you want to come along and do a show in Hoxton that I do?" So I said, "Yes, please." And he saw me there. And then later on that year, almost at the last minute, he said, "My Edinburgh show, when I take it on tour, is actually running a bit short. So can I have a support act? Would you like to support me on an 88-day tour all over the UK, including the Isle of Wight?" I was like, "Oh my god, yes, please!" Worst gig ever. I did a stag do in Bournemouth, and I didn't know it was a stag do until I got there. And the thing about these stag do gigs is the vast majority of the audience there are not there to see comedy.
No.
They've been dragged along, and they want to get the comedian out the way so that the strip club can then happen and they can get pissed. So they just see us as heckle bait. And especially me, because I was wearing my glasses, scrawny little student at the time. And so they're just yelling student before I'd even said a word. So it was a horrible gig. The only time I've ever been booed off stage.
Really?
That's how bad it was. And then to add insult to injury, on the way out of the gig I saw I had a parking ticket. Yay!
Oh no!
So I made a net loss of about £100 and something that day. But at least I had a story to tell.
Well, yeah, maybe that's it's inspiration for another song.
Hello, I'm Jay Foreman, and this is the Luxley Show. Yeah, you mentioned this is the strangest thing. I've had loads of people send emails to me saying, "I really love your Tube song, your London Underground song," and then for the first time in years, you said, "I love your Nations of the World." So I'm like, well, no, hang on. That's the song that I tried to replace, because that's not even my song. It's the Animaniacs song. It's one of my favourite songs of all time. I love it, and it's based on, you probably know, Tom Leary's periodic table of the elements.
Okay.
And there have been loads and loads of list songs. So like Mitch Benn has done a song called "I'm Proud of the BBC," which is about a 5-minute list of all of the great TV and radio programmes that the BBC have ever had, and it rhymes and it's great. So I saw all of these sorts of songs and thought, well, why don't I do one of my own? And I did some research, and no one had done the London Underground, so we did a London Underground song.
She's come strolling right out to us. Okay, now we're going to play a game. I have to try to stay where it was in London that you were staying. So think about where it was, and I'm going to telepathically guess your nearest London Underground station. Now, for those of you that don't know the tube system in London well, there are 270 stations. So if I guessed this within 3, this would be impressive. So think about it in your mind. Was the station that you were close to Hornchurch? No. Ickenham. Hainault. Cockfosters. Are you laughing at Cockfosters? We did the hero all right? Ravenscourt Park. Bromley by Bow. Morden. Monument. Mornington Crescent, Paddington, Plaistow, Pimlico, Dagenham, Heathway, Elephant and Castle, Richmond, Sloane Square, Beckentry, Brixton, Barbican, Chorleywood, Amersham, Eastcote, Alberton, East Finchley.
Well, for the Animaniacs song, the way I learnt it was, at the time I was house sitting in, this is a long story, but I was in a house in York that didn't have any internet. And I'd printed out on campus the lyrics of the song.
So you had it on your print?
I had it written down, and I just, the old-fashioned way of covering it up and trying to remember it. And you're helped slightly by the fact that it's in more or less geographical order, so they do the Americas first and then Europe. And that's because the video actually is animated. You actually have Jakob pointing to the map, so it has to work like that. But no, the way I normally learn things is to, like for example, the Tube song, which took long enough to write, to actually learn it, I recorded it, reading it written down, and then listened to myself over and over again.
So it's repetition of the same speed, so you
yeah.
slowed it down at all?
No, that doesn't help. I find it easier to remember things if it's all based on sound, because that's just how I learn things. And if you're trying to learn anything, like if it's sung, if it rhymes, it's easy to remember. So the way we wrote it we had, it was me and a friend of mine, John Gracie. He is part of a sketch group called, well, he used to be, he's moved to Australia now, but he was a member of the sketch group, the Beta Maids, and he was helping me direct, well, he was directing my Edinburgh show last year, and he helped me write this song. And what we did was we had to get a list of every tube station, make sure that all of them were there, make sure we didn't accidentally include one out. We can't miss one out because the YouTube comments section will, won't let us hear the end of it. So we had to make sure we had the right list. Then we split it into sections. We had this spreadsheet with a list of all of the stations. So we had like all the ones that end in street, all the ones that end in park, all the ones that we would have to sing in 6/8 time rather than 4/4 time, otherwise it won't match the syllables. And only once we had that list complete, we then started putting it together. So it was more like doing a jigsaw than writing a song, because we already knew exactly what it would sound like when it was finished. We just had to make it work.
Kennington, Fairfield, Farringdon, Ryde, Barrett's Court, Maida Vale, Barking, Buckinghamshire, Dipton, Hammersmith, Vauxhall, Granby Park, Tottenham Hill. What have I done? Oakwood, Woodgreen, Woodford, Colliers, Wood, and then Huxley, Charing Cross, Kings Cross, St Pancras, Brennan Cross, Cross, Osterley, Balham, Borough, Chesham, Hampstead, Loughton, Leighton, Leytonstone, Stanmore, Nesbitt, Greenford, Northcote, Northfield, Southfield, Marylebone.
Sometimes you want them to think it took ages. So the tube song, for example, I kind of relish in people saying that must have taken you ages. Like, yeah, it did. It's not. That's the difference between music and magic, is that it's no secret how it's done. And the weird thing about stand-up comedy, more so than musical comedy, there is a bit of secrecy to it, because the illusion is. Sorry to spoil it, ladies and gentlemen. You're meeting someone who is naturally really funny, and everything they say is great, and you're being taken on this journey where it's just peppered with these jokes here and there. Of course, if you think about it, it's all been very, very well rehearsed and prepared, and the jokes come first, and the segues and the scaffolding comes next. If you think about it, that's obvious, but the illusion is someone's walked on stage, he's just talking to the crowd, naturally being funny, telling these stories, and these, it's peppered with these funny jokes. But we all know it works the other way. Music is different, because with music, everybody knows you've already written it. It rhymes, it scans, everyone knows you've come pre-prepared. So it's very different. It means that you don't get heckled as much, which is why I'm very badly practiced at how to deal with hecklers, because people tend not to heckle songs. They heckle if they think they'll get a reaction. Yeah. And a song has been pre-written, everybody knows that, so they're not going to shout at you. And I don't give them time either.
Carabelle, Leicester Square, Goose Street, Baker Street, Bond Street, Weber Street, Old Street, Liverpool Street, Edgeware. Have I got it so far, by the way? But you promised me that when I do get your station, you'll stop dancing. South Ealing, South Harrow, South Kenton, South Woodford, Canary Wharf, Harrow and Wealdstone.
You're watching The Luxley Show.
Whenever you're trained fashion.
The fact that I live in London and have to get the tube every day, anything that you do every day, you end up being fascinated in. It makes your tube journey so much more interesting if you know where you are, and if you know the history of the station you're in, and if you know, for example, why does this one look like it does, why does the line bend in that kind of funny way. If you know the history behind it, and me being bored on a train with Wikipedia, I can't help but find out the history behind it, you end up knowing so much about it.
You've got a couple of amazing sort of mini documentaries, and they are, apart from anything else, because it's a strange mix of being hilarious generally, but also ridiculously factual.
Those documentaries, I don't think there's anything weird or wrong about making it as factual as possible, making it all true, but also making it as funny as possible.
Yeah,
because if it isn't, well, especially for YouTube, if it isn't funny, if there isn't a reason for people to keep watching, something to prevent them from clicking on another tab or just getting bored and stopping watching, they're not going to watch the whole thing. 10 minutes is very, very long, especially on YouTube.
I know.
So nowadays, 10 minutes is way, way, way too long. So I wanted to make it funny because comedy is my background and I enjoy making people laugh, but I also wanted to make it factual because we're actually telling a true story. So I think it's great fun to make it factual and comedy. I don't like TV has to put things into very specific categories. You're not going to sell anything to a TV company unless you can tell them exactly which category on iPlayer, which tab it comes under, which channel it's for, who the demographic is. And the fun thing about Unfinished London is we just made it for ourselves. So it's really geeky, but it's also full of weird, surreal jokes and swearing and drug references. That means, you can't show it in a geography lesson.
Yeah.
But we didn't make it for geography lessons, we made it for ourselves, just to make us giggle. And funnily enough, on YouTube, that goes more viral. That ends up making more of an effect.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the woman who's not going to dance again! Broadway Fringe, Chelsea, Broadway, Arsenal, Stonewall, Chigwell, Seven Sisters.
You'll be pleased to know we're currently working on a third one, and we haven't started filming yet, but we're still in the writing process. See, my partner in crime, Paul, he's never bloody available because he has a proper job doing actual TV camera work. So whenever I can pin him down, we work together on Unfinished London. Episode 3 is going to be about airports.
See, so you've got trains in one, you've got sort of the highways and the byways.
The first one is trains, second one is roads, motorways, and the third one is going to be airports, planes.
Oh, exactly.
We don't know yet if there's ever going to be a fourth or fifth. Maybe not. I mean,
Boris Bike.
we mentioned Boris Bikes because
you flash up on the different modes of transport, isn't it?
I don't know. Could you do a documentary about unfinished cycle infrastructure? I mean, all cycle infrastructure in London is unfinished, so you could probably.
If you could maybe even tie it in with a trip to Amsterdam to see what the difference is.
If I could get a proper TV production company to fund it, then we would insist that we have to go on a trip to Amsterdam for research purposes.
Oh, let me know. I'll be your gaff.
Yeah, we've got to stay there for some weeks.
Anything all the east, something like that, and I was got based in Victoria, Milton East. I was just Kempton, Midgate, Common, Bermondsey, Heathrow Terminals 4 and 5, Heathrow Terminals 1, 2, 3, Epping, Euston, Kilburn. This is the weirdest gig I've ever done. I'll
never finish the lyrics or finish the tune first. You have to sort of have blurry, not quite sure versions of both, so that they can not compromise, but so that they can work together. I mean, the best results are when you write them both at the same time. You'll come up with a melody with a tune. You write the catchiest bit first, and then the next bit is to come up with all of the supporting structure that makes it work. But no, never. I never finish the lyrics first and then add a tune, or vice versa. Apart from, I can think of only 2 exceptions. I had a song that I wrote in 2003, years before I started doing funny songs properly. And I liked the melody, but I never could find anything for it. And then years later, I completely rewrote the lyrics.
Yeah.
And then the opposite of that, the night before an exam at uni, I wrote a poem called Martin Was a Monkey. And I liked the poem, and I thought, well, no one's ever going to hear it in poem form, I better put a tune to it. So I gave it a melody. And that's why that song has a really unusually rigid syllable structure, because it was a poem.
Oh, no, that's quite interesting.
But most of the time, it's both at the same time.
South Harrow, South Kensington, South Brookford, Canary Wharf, Harrow and Wealdstone, North Acton, North Eton, North Greenwich, North Harrow, North Wembley and Highbury and Islington. Sing along! Caledonian Road and Edgware Road and Finchley Road and Gloucester Road and Dorset Road and Holloway Road and Peterborough Road and Preston Road and Park, Park, High Park Corner and Upney, Moorcock, Town Lodge, Chiswick, Ewing Park, Finsbury Park, Rogan Valley, Hendon Central, Hounslow Central, Wembley Central, Belsize Park, Finchley Central, Covent Garden, Tottenham Court Road, Woodside Park. Nearly finished.
Poems are sometimes ideas for songs that I never got around to finishing, or I think this isn't quite good enough for a song. I'll just write it off as a poem and I'll stick it on Twitter, or I'll recite it at a gig. But songs are much more. If I really like an idea, then I'll make it a song.
Because you just said you didn't want it's not going to get heard if it's a poem, and so
yeah. Well, nowadays, because I've made the transition from musician with funny lyrics to proper stand-up comedian. I've got to actually literally stand up, and I've got to do jokes between the songs. So that means there actually is an opportunity now for me to do poems where I never used to. When I started doing gigs, it was just, I'd barely say a word in between the songs. It was just song. But now that it has to be a lot more variety, I get an opportunity to read some poems.
And that's all of them! Thank you very much! Fantastic lineup! Enjoy the rest of the evening, thank you, good night! Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jay Foreman!
You're going to tell me how this works out.
Alright.
So you can have any card, right? So if you're thinking of a card right now, okay, then hold that in your mind, okay? Now, you have the ability to change that card, and I'd like you to change your card. So if you're thinking of 7 of spades right now, you can change it to something else. Okay. So now you've thought of one card and you've gone to a second card.
You want me to think of 2 cards?
Well, no, I want you to, think of a second
Think
card.
of a card and
Make
then
sure
think of a
you
different
get a different card. Yeah, right. Now, for the third choice, which is a change, okay, you get to change it. So you have to change your mind twice. Okay, but the second change could be back to the original card, or it could be to 51 other cards. So in your head, you have to have changed your mind twice. Even if you go straight back to the original one, that's fine. Or if you go from 1 to 2, so you could have 7 of spades, 9 hearts, 4 diamonds.
And I have to remember all 3 of them?
No, all you've got to do is tell me what the last card that you landed on in your mind was. So it's going to be a random choice. So the idea is I couldn't have Darren Browned you and programmed it in this interview. Then it's a case of this has to be your free choice. Maybe there's a card that means something to you. Maybe there's a card that is linked to something to do with you or your family or your. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's something specific, or maybe you think I might know that. So then you go against.
So in order to catch you out, I have to think of a second card and then think of another card yet again, which I could go back to the original one, or I could go for yet a third. I've done that and I got one.
Beautiful. Are you ready? Okay,
yes.
So hands off. Okay, I'm going to put all of this away so there's no messing around, there's no cheating, there's no influences, there's no misdirection. What's that, by the way? You want some of these? You want one?
No, I've still got to eat this. It's the same flavour, isn't it? There's Eton Mess jelly beans, and this is strawberries and cream scone.
It works very well. Right, so what was the card that you didn't go with?
That I didn't go with?
Yeah.
The one I did not go with
was
the 10 of hearts.
Correct. Brilliant. Okay, and what card did you end up with?
I ended up with the 4 of clubs.
Correct.
Is that the trick?
Yeah, I'll show you. I actually made a prediction. No, seriously, the 4 of
clubs.
Yeah, that's right. I'll show you. In here, you'll see that there is purely one card the wrong way round. Now, what is that card?
What is it? The 4 of clubs?
Well, it'd make me a bloody good magician if it was, wouldn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, Huxley Hunt. Thank you very much. Seeing you tonight and at the gig and stuff for Mr. B's Gentle Rhymer.
Oh yeah, I'd plug it, but it's surely already happened.
Wait,
is that switched off?
No, it's on, but that means it will have already. Yeah, so, but with that in mind, where can people come and see you next?
Go to my website, which is www.jforeman.co.uk, and there's a section called Gigs. Click on that, it's got all my upcoming gigs. The one that I most want to plug is my show at the Edinburgh Festival, which is going to be called Jay Foreman's Disgusting Songs for Revolting Children and Other Funny Stories. It's a very long-winded title, but that is my first ever kids show at the Edinburgh Fringe. So if you have, or if you are small children, or if you're massive children, grown-ups, then come along and see the show.
All of the links for these bits will be in the box below. Thank you very much, Mr. Foreman.
Thank you very much.
There we go, perfect.
Hello, I'm Jay Foreman. And this. That doesn't make sense. And he's found, at last, a way of doing it.
What about...
I just did a really awkward thing there. When you went off to check on the camera, I continued addressing the space where you were sitting, just in case you can't be seen.
No, I can cut it.
But I've just realised if you were in shot walking off, then I looked demented. I was just talking to an empty space.
Okay.
What can be seen in this shot?
At the moment, us. Yes.
You can see us both. So
yes.
I did look.